Good morning, eighth graders. Today is April 30th, 2020. It is, I believe, our 1000th day of no school quarantine, something like that. Anyway, I kind of get confused. A lot of things happening today. Got a lot of work done after school. Hayden gave me some dirt. Happy about that. Going to go get some more dirt tonight, maybe if I have some time, and his dad has some time. Anyway, that's a story for another day. Someday when we're back together. Not. Anyway, so today we're going to talk about the reactions to these new immigrants. Yesterday's discussion was Ellis Island, Angel Island, medical stuff, blah, 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 and problems with urbanization. So as cities grow, you can imagine that some of the problems that they face. If you've ever been to a big city, today we think of noise pollution or air quality. Um, those things would have existed then too, but on a different scale. Other problems existed. So we'll take a look at that and get through that today. So that's the goal. And I do want to make one more little announcement to you that if I could get everybody to watch the video. So let's see, I have 167 students. If I get 100 people, at least one, let's say 120 people, that'd be a good. That was our average up until last week. 120 people watched this video all the way to the end, because I can figure out the numbers and the statistics and the analytics, and YouTube will tell me how long we watched it. So I'll try to keep it 15 to 17 minutes, watch it all the way to the end. 120 people. On Friday, we will have no assignment. No assignment Friday if you can do that one little thing. And catch up if you're behind. So look in the stream. If you haven't done all your homework this week, get it done, please. So, when we talk about reactions to immigration, there's always been a lot of prejudice in our country, and we see those prejudices today, though sometimes they're not quite as clear. They exist, especially with older generations. At least I can remember my grandmother, who would be old for you. You know, she died when she was 93, probably 10 years ago or more. Well, she was born in 1909, so she'd be 111 years old if she were still alive today. So I guess that's more than 10 years, more like 18 years. Wow. Anyway, she didn't intentionally demonstrate prejudice, but she was a prejudiced person. And I think you and I are a lot more accepting, but think of what you see in the news with racism and homophobia and things like that. So that's always existed. It's probably better today, or at least I hope it's better today than at any other time in history. But and you and I are working to try to make it even better all the time. So anyway, when immigrants came to America then, so they could avoid as much prejudice and discrimination as possible, they tried to blend in as much as they could. So as soon as they set foot in America, most, not all, most attempted to learn English as quickly as they could. They attempted to drop accents, in some instances changed their names on purpose, not because they did it at Ellis Island. Um, they tried to assimilate. They tried to become part of the melting pot. America has always been described as a melting pot, and it took until I was in college for a college professor to point out that we're really not much of a melting pot. And let me explain the difference. This college professor said we were more like a tossed salad. You know, a tossed salad is really good. It's got tomato and lettuce and some cheese sprinkled on it and some salad dressing and maybe sorry, excuse me, maybe some little chopped up pieces of turkey or chicken or something like that, and croutons and all of those delicious things that make a salad good. Just plain lettuce is no good, but if you add all those things, yummy. But a melting pot's a little different. So today, tossed salad, back then, melting pot. Imagine, if you would, it's a nice, cool fall day. You're having friends over for a football game or a party. Have you ever, I'm asking a question like you can actually answer me, have you ever made that dip in the crock pot where you throw in a chunk of Velveeta and some taco meat and maybe a little bit of salsa? I don't know what it's called, Rotel, but that stuff is so gooey and warm and delicious. And you dip chips in it and Doritos, and it is so good. Now, that's because you've taken all those separate ingredients and you've melted them together. A lot like the tossed salad, those ingredients are all good on their own, but they're better together. Both are the same that way. But the reason why this college professor of mine said that America is not a melting pot is because you can't separate the parts of the nacho cheese melty gooey goodness sauce. But a tossed salad you can. And that demonstrates that we are a prejudiced society then and now. We were a tossed salad, not a melting pot. People, if they didn't like the tomatoes, they could take them out. Later on, we see the Chinese Exclusion Act. If we don't like the Chinese, we kick them out, or we discriminate against them. So that's kind of the tossed salad part of us. Melting pot would be better because you can't remove the taco meat once you've put it in that cheese sauce. You can't remove the jalapenos once they're in there. That taste is already part of the mixture. So hopefully you kind of understand that. But to assimilate is to blend in. And the more you blend in, the quicker you blend in, the less you're likely to be picked on because you're different. So look at these little children packed in that schoolhouse. We think when there's 25 of us in a classroom, it's like, oh my gosh, it's so full. Where am I supposed to sit? You stink. You smell funny. Oh my gosh, Creighton's feet are horrible. Yeah, we kind of get that way. These little children probably didn't bathe every day either, but that classroom looks more like a closet or a hallway. But they did what they had to do, and learning, getting an education was the best way to assimilate quickly. Blend in, assimilate. Again, if you want to become American, you better act American. So these little children, instead of putting their hand over their heart for the Pledge of Allegiance, it looks like maybe they're saluting the flag. America. So once they got here, they really were sort of restricted. You see Uncle Sam here; he's kind of like, "No, I don't want you coming into beautiful America." And the back. So they found jobs in places where the factories were dangerous or hot or crowded, oftentimes called sweatshops because you sweated a lot. There was no air conditioning, no fans, no protective devices to protect you against the machinery that was whizzing by quickly. Death was imminent for a lot of people, not necessarily because of the contraptions, but if you worked in a textile mill, for instance, you breathed in so many little teeny tiny microscopic fibers of cotton for $10 a week that eventually you die from some sort of a lung disease. So not necessarily the kind of jobs that we look for, and we don't even think of sweatshop jobs being minimum wage type jobs today. It's worse than that. The conditions were all horrible, and they didn't make much money. Chinese Exclusion Act in 1882, and that's not the first one. California had passed a Chinese Exclusion Act during the gold rush, so there's always been, I guess, historically, a little bit of prejudice against Asians, and that's gotten a lot better over time. The COVID-19 certainly doesn't help, at least when you watch the media. It seems that that still exists. But I think most of us in Blair America are pretty open to accepting whoever. I don't care where you're from. I don't care what color you are. I don't care if you're a man or a woman or a boy or a girl. I don't care if you like dudes or you like girls. I accept you as long as you're nice to me. And I think that's how most of us are. At least I hope that's how we are. At least I think that's how we're supposed to be. So um, kind of keep that in mind, I guess, move forward in life. Everyone in the family had to help. So these little children, some of them, I don't know, 6, 5, 7. It looks like they're all sitting around sewing on something. In the evening, they're all the dude here with the beard working on the sewing machine while Ma's sitting in the chair doing something. Um, they're working. Everybody had to contribute. Maybe we even see some of this today to a certain extent. If your parents are out of work because of the furloughs and the layoffs with COVID-19, maybe you have to chip in. Maybe you mow some lawns or you babysit or do something to help with the bills, and that becomes part of normal life when things are tough. If mom and dad don't have enough to pay for the bills, then everyone has to chip in. How about this guy? First of all, you can look at the other pictures. They're all working in the living room. I don't know what they're making, but they're all working. Look at this guy. Now, this slideshow typically would come in different parts, and it asks what is his job, and you can't really tell, but he's got these little buckets with holes in them, and you can't see very well. But in his hand here is a very very sharp little knife, and this is a mountain of clams or oysters. Now, what I love best about this picture is look at he's little. He can't be what 6 or 7 years old, and He's cracking clams, making a little bit of money to contribute to the family. That's what immigrants had to do. They weren't given great opportunities, so they took advantage of every opportunity they could. But my favorite part of this picture, you tell me that this little man doesn't look like a miniature Mr. Legrand. Looks exactly like a miniature Mr. or one of Mr. Legrand's children. I think that very well could be. This is a tenement building after a fire. So you got a fireman here or a policeman, whatever. This is like an apartment building, except it's one room. So you cook and you eat and you sleep all in the same room. And this would house maybe multiple families in some instances. Um, no air conditioning. You got a stove for heat. You also cook on the stove. Very little room. There's one, two, three, four, at least 4 or 5 chairs that I can see. They hang their laundry from up here. So it's a great picture to demonstrate what a tenement building would look like. A slum or rundown area, someplace that you wouldn't be allowed to live. City of Blair found out that there was an apartment that looked like this, they would find the owner and shut them down. More pictures of just sort of family life. How about this apartment? You got a little wash basin here where you can wash up, and you got a bed, and you got a door. That's it. And a broken chair. How about this dude? This is their backyard because they live in a high rise apartment building. Remember, skyscrapers and moving upward in big cities, streetcars, steel buildings, and electric elevators. So they're 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 stories up. Who knows? They have an American flag because that assimilation part. But how would you like your 8-year-old standing on top of a ladder? They might even only be on the second floor, but no, not going to allow it. But they're all just hanging out, or your baby hanging out here, probably just fall off. Probably millions of babies just fell off of there. This is a sweatshop of women that are sewing some sort of a garment. Doesn't look like bad working conditions, but imagine those conditions. 12 hours a day, hot in the summer, cold in the winter, and you work as much as you have to work. But a job's a job. There's a big story about a shirtwaist factory that went up in smoke in 1911. 146 of the workers died. There really weren't fire escapes. There's no place to go if the place catches on fire. Yeah, you get caught there. And there's a video for it too, but we're not going to take the time to watch it. And these are some of the workers in their coffins with a mass funeral, I guess you would say. Oh, shoot. Well, A&E had a really good video for the shirtwaist factory fire. I guess we don't get to watch that. Aftermath of the fire, you can see that it just smoked everything. I'm not a fireman, but that seems like probably the conditions inside that building with the textiles and with cotton fibers made it ripe for a fire. It was probably pretty easy for it to happen there. You think about buildings today, even our classroom, not your house necessarily, but classrooms or offices, they have sprinkler systems built into the ceiling. So even if there is a fire, it's going to slow it down at the very least or help contain it. No precautions like that then. And oftentimes in the picture that we looked at there, they were using electric lights. Missed it. Electricity at least, but in some instances in sweatshops they'd be working by candlelight or probably more like lanterns. So, what are some of the problems? Well, not so much on the East Coast, but on the West Coast, earthquakes, large, tall buildings, and earthquakes don't necessarily go well together. So when the ground shakes, the building collapses, the people die. Disease, there's a reason why we're at home and we're supposed to stay 6 feet apart and supposed to wear a face mask. And for some of you, that's probably a good idea to wear a face mask anyway, even if you're not sick, just cover part of your face. Oh, I miss you guys so much. But disease would spread rapidly the closer you are together. That's why we're apart. Overcrowding. A tenement was that rundown, overcrowded apartment building that we looked at, where you might have multiple families living in a one-room apartment, cramming in to save money because that's all you could afford. with no plumbing. You got to go down 4 or 5 flights of stairs to get to an outside outhouse. That's a tenement. We have laws against that today. The city of Blair, for instance, will dictate to a landlord how many people are allowed to live in an apartment or in a building, and that's based on the amount of plumbing and the number of bedrooms and stuff like that. See just the trash and stuff, and this they have washers and dryers. They will wash their clothes by hands, and then these are their clotheslines, just lines from building to building, and then they have a pulley system, so they just put their clothes out to dry. Kind of a cool system, actually. Got a mama and the two babies, so she can't work, obviously, because she got to take care of these two babies. But you just check out all their belongings. Got this clock here. That's probably a precious thing. The stove here with a big, gigantic coffee pot on it. They didn't own much. It was pretty Spartan. Even a calendar. I wish we could read what was on the calendar. But and this is a normal apartment life. You and I in Blair, Nebraska, or even if you live in an apartment, we're used to a lot of space. And imagine being packed in like that. But if you own the apartment building, the tinier the apartments, the more money you could make, the more families you could put in there. Um, it's all about the Benjamins. A lot of kids became orphans. Orphans meaning they have no parents. Their parents would, if they couldn't afford them, to do the best for the child, they drop them off at churches, yeah, or orphanages. Or Little Orphan Annie that you've heard about or watched the movie before. Some lived on the streets and stole. Nebraska tried a law a few years ago. It kind of ended up being a huge flop, but it was I don't know, was it called a safe haven law or something? But if you had a child that you did not want, you could not care for. And I don't think the law exists anymore because it sort of backfired. You could drop them off at a hospital in Nebraska, no questions asked. And they would take them into the foster care system and work on adopting them out. Uh, and it backfired because when people from other places learned about that law, there was one incident shortly after the law passed, and this was, I don't know, 10 years ago probably. Time flies for me. They drove all the way from Denver, Colorado to drop their kid off at a hospital in Omaha because and they, I don't know, they, maybe you could say they're bad parents, but they were doing what they thought was best for the child. The child needed someone to take care of them. So overcrowded orphanages. You imagine being one of these children. I guess you got people to play with during the pandemic. Families all worked at home for some extra money. I don't have any idea what they're doing, but they are all contributing, every one of them. And that takes us into chapter 21, which is the progressive era, which I love talking about that too. So we'll see if we have to go into that based on how well you guys do watching this video. But if 120 people watch this video today, so call your friends, remind them, say, turn it on, play it in the background while you're doing TikToks. I don't know. Or maybe you should do a TikTok, history TikTok, and that'd be neat. Anyway, whatever. Miss you guys. Have a great evening. See you in the Zoom today at 10:30 or 12:30. Have a good one.